Hi, in this video we're going to do some charts that actually show performance against a goal. All right, and so this chart is done. I'm going to show you how to create it. Again, always the first thing you have to do is make sure you have your data set up the way that you need to be able to create the chart. In this case, we're looking at revenues and then a target goal. Okay, so in our data, we do have it available, the information that we need to create the revenue, which I'll talk more about. But at this time, I want to continue on with making the chart. All right, so once you have the revenue and a target, okay, and this actually shows the variance as well, but we're going to start with just looking at the target and the revenue and make a chart. So first thing, select the data that you want to be into your chart. Insert. Here's our column chart. And just like in some of the other charts that we've seen created, we're just going to change this revenue right here. Okay, so you can click into it and do the revenue. And we're actually going to change this chart type to a line chart. And so we have the chart created. Now, if you wanted to include the variance, one of the ways that you can do that is if you include it into the actual title here, like in this example, you'll see that this variance could be included, which could be, good information to have included in that chart. So I'm going to create the same chart again. And you'll see that this chart right here, let me change that to the line chart. Okay, so you have a column. We're going to change the line there, which we have. But you'll notice in this chart, you now have included the variance in this as well, which makes a very good informative chart as well. And all we did was, it depends on how we set up our data so that it would be included in this particular chart when we created it. Now, while I'm here, this is a time I want to talk about revenue as well. When you figure out revenue was not included in the columns in the raw data, but the information was in another table which allowed you to calculate the revenue. Right? So you can calculate the revenue by doing a couple of different ways actually. One, you could add another column, okay, which is what a lot of people would instinctively want to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get 10 or 12, 1,000 rows of data, sometimes that's not the most practical thing that you want to do. So one of the other things that you can do is you can actually just take and create a pivot chart, and then once you have the pivot chart, you can multiply it by the amount of whatever, the particular item is. So to create the revenue, and if you have cost, you can get the net. If you have your retail, you can get the gross. You can subtract the two and get your profit. So there are a lot of ways to be able to do that. So one of the things I want to do is I want to go back to our data. And by doing that, we can go back then, and we're going to take that data, and I'll show you what I mean by creating the pivot table and being able to set it up so you can see the revenue. All right, so in this data here, we have quantity, okay, and so I'm going to create a pivot table. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll drop it into a new one. And so if I want to take the order quantity and say the models, and now I wanted to figure out what the revenue was, I could take and just multiply times the pivot table column that you see. If I do that, it makes it dynamic. I could also copy the data out and make it static and multiply it times that. I could use a VLOOKUP to look up the data, but I'll show you how to do a simple one let's say we have over here, I'm going to put some prices in just to give you an example. So we're going to say that a bike wash, we'll say, is $30. A cable lock is $12. A chain is $5. And a vest is $29. All right, so I'm just going to put BW for bike wash, CL for cable lock, C for chain, and the classic vest will be CV. All right, so we have some values this way, and then we have our information over here. So we could just take then in here and do simple multiplication, and if I times it times the bike wash here, hit enter, I now have a dollar amount that I could actually figure out, in this case, the retail of what the bike washes would have been. All right, so again, there's numerous ways to do this. If you did it different, it's fine, but this is one easy way to quickly find out. If you kept the amounts on the raw data, you could do a VLOOKUP to that, and that would be a way to do the VLOOKUP instead of changing it over here. That's a nice way to do it with the VLOOKUP because of the fact that then if you changed it in one place, it would automatically change everywhere else. Anytime you set it up with multiple copies of the same thing, you know, if you do want to be careful that it ever changes, that it updates, you know, you could do that. You could also write a macro that would update your figures. So I could put them here and create a macro that would automatically go to the raw data and copy them into this in case they ever change. So again, there's lots of ways to do the same thing, but this is one way that you could easily do. And since I put these in order here, you know, I could actually just copy down and it would go, you know, through the ones I had there. Whoops, I wanted to keep going on there, but I go back here and show you that way. All right, so lots of different ways to get that revenue. All right, now the last thing on this video, and I'm going to go back through these spreadsheets until I get back to where I was in this particular one. So, and I get back to the thermometer chart. All right, so we just figured out here performance against a goal. Okay, and now I want to show you another type of performance against a goal, and this is called a thermometer chart. Okay, and again, this is in the book. Okay, so all we've done again is set up the revenue versus what your target would be. Okay, if I select the data, insert, I'm going to create a column chart. Okay, I'm going to move it beside so you can see how it's going to turn into this type of chart. Okay, so again, we're doing the same type of thing that we've been doing. Okay, we have to decide which one we just want to make the behind the other one. Okay, and it doesn't really matter because you'll see both of them after we do it. I just did a right click. I'm going to format the data series. I have to change it to a secondary axis. Then I have to change this gap width. And by changing that, it's going to spread it out. Whoops. So I moved up a little bit here. It's going to spread it out so that now you'll see that I've got this particular bar, you know, here, the column in front of the other one so that you can see now the revenue versus the target. Okay, this is in gray. That tends to be nice because it makes it easy to see. But again, this is a thermometer chart. It's going to show you that performance against a goal.